Didn't have to slog through snow this morning, so. First order of business is to accept the minutes from the January 31st meeting. Moved by Sam, second by John. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Jason.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, good morning, committee. I have one item on the agenda, and it's a budget amendment for an operations labor. The operations labor position is currently in the staffing pattern, but not in the 2023 budget. The scenario playing out in this situation is that this position, this particular personnel was in the wastewater operator training title, is now moving back to the laborer's position title. So the budget amendment for total plus base and fringe is 68,000. So the base step, he's at step 4 currently at roughly 45,000. I added 50% to fringe, which is around 22,000, which brings a total of 68,000. I'd like to move from GB 599, which is the general fund, to the 8130 personnel line.
Is this going to go to personnel?
This is actually just a budget amendment, so we have finance.
So you making the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second. Okay, you got a question?
I got a question. This is on the staffing pattern already? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Currently in the staffing pattern.
So you haven't filled it yet, right?
But, well, it's not going to be a backfill. It's what the person currently in the position is in an operator trainee title, and continually takes the salary from the operator trainee title. So we want to keep the trainee title open,
Okay.
and just shift that person back to labor.
Got it.
So is this a change in the amount from what he's getting?
No, he's currently being paid at the labor at step 4.
Okay, so
What he's
it's just-
currently paying, he's taking from the operator trainee budget line, where I need to actually put an operator trainee in.
So it's just a wash kind of move.
Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else?
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow. Can I good morning. So we start, I've had mine laid out a little differently, so I'll try to do it. So the budget amendment the resolution for Marchicelli. So we have 2 Marchicelli federal aid projects that we got. One is for a bridge in Whitehall on Gray Lane. So Al's not here, so he said to send this to finance. This is our
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Moving to finance? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then next we have a supplemental for the Church Street project. So this adds funds in the amount of $19,902 to the construction inspection phase of the project.
Moved by Dave, finance. Mr. Fisher. Are we finally wearing this down? Is this going to be one of the final expenses on this bridge? It's all done?
Church Street Bridge.
Yeah.
This is a never-ending.
Never
bridge.
ending.
Yeah.
I was stuck behind a portion of it. It's about 8 feet high and 90 feet long. Yeah.
It's fun to watch that, isn't it?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was.
Yep.
All in favor of the amendment? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So next up, we have the Household Hazardous Waste Grant. So we sent out an RFP and we had 2 applications. One was Trade B and one was MXI. MXI did it before. So we reviewed everything. The qualifications, experience, and cost, they had similar qualifications. similar experience, except MXI had done ours before, but there was a cost difference. So I'm assuming you would want to go with the lesser cost one. Trade B. So when they do this, they don't give us a cost. What I did was I took, when we did this project before, and I applied what they proposed for cost to dispose of X, Y, Z and all that, and then compared it that way. So that's how I came up with the cost for this project. So it's about a $5,000 difference. So I recommend that trade B be awarded the household hazardous waste project. And I'm going to send it to finance, I guess, if it does go through, right? For the budget
Is there a
amendment.
motion by Mr. Fisher? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
I'm just awarding it.
I'm awarding it, but then we also have to do the grant part of it. And Al said, did Al say something about something? Yes, because there's a budget amendment when we put in for grants. You can't budget for a grant, so you have to do a budget amendment.
Okay, so we were awarded the grant by the state to pay for half of it.
Yes, it is next year that they pay for this year's.
Yeah. And is there a date associated with this? Yeah.
Yes, it should. We are looking at the first weekend in May, but that's not been finalized because we haven't awarded it. So we haven't talked to them to see if they're available on that day. But we're hoping that they are. That will also be a paint collection day. Seems,
Do they take cars?
but I will check.
Any questions on the motion?
No, I didn't know if you were sending them in. Everybody dumps them in a farm. We don't want them.
I think farmers got plenty of tires, they don't need any more.
We have to have columns. We can't have tires in.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
DEC,
Yep, you might get a mosquito.
Everybody's good.
bats aren't gonna be able to eat.
Yep.
All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We veered that left or this.
So is the award of the mini bid up next? It's
Pickup trucks?
For the pickup?
pickup trucks, yep. So let's see what I have here. So we have a DPW service truck. It came in under budget. We did a mini bid for it, so we would like to award that to Joe Basil Chevy for $56,159.35.
Despite the fact that it's Chevy.
Because it is, I'll second it.
Were these, I'm guessing, the gas ones or not? Or diesel?
This is gas. We're still going through the Foreman trucks because the diesel was so expensive that we're considering getting one diesel and one not. So we haven't figured that out
I'm
yet.
gonna say 56 for.
Pretty good deal.
Yeah,
And that
But
includes the,
Diesel, no way. Yeah.
it's dreaming.
that includes the utility body. So
That's
That's really
real
good.
good.
it's actually $47,640 just for the truck.
Where's this dealer out of?
This is Joe Basil.
He's had quite a few.
Yeah, he does. I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
any more discussion on the acceptance? All in favor?
I
Aye.
think
Opposed?
So we also did another mini bid that I want to squeak in here. This is for the VA, and they wanted an all-wheel drive van. The only person who got back to us was a rear-wheel drive van, so it didn't meet the specifications, so we have to reject it.
Check.
Yep, we have to reject this bid because if we wanted a rear-wheel drive, they're the only ones who said, oh, try me. So if we wanted a rear-wheel drive, others might have put a bid in. So that's why we have to reject this one. Plus it was very expensive.
I'll move to
Oh, no, it
reject it.
wasn't.
I'll second
Motion to reject it. What will we do? Go back to the VA and see what they want to do, or?
Yeah, apparently only Ford makes an all-wheel drive and they can't get any of these vans. So we're trying to work with the department to see what's best for them.
Is that like a 15 passenger
Yes.
bigger van?
Yep.
Do the VA transport 15 people at a time, often?
That's one of the things
They
that we're
make
gonna,
all-wheel drive minivans.
Yep.
Take 7 people, would that be more practical for them?
If they got a wheelchair,
one of,
ramp to lift them up. Okay. That's why I think they went for the bigger one, because they have the wheelchair.
Right, if you
You
get
can
one
put
or
them
two
in the same-
disabled folks that need wheels, it takes up space fast.
so is that for a wheelchair capable van? Because we're getting one wheelchair van and one not wheelchair.
Okay.
van. And that's one of the things we're gonna talk about, you know, in our
Discussion.
discussions with them. I'm so bad with words.
All in favor on rejecting the bids? Aye. Opposed?
Is auction of the trucks up next? So we have talked about this truck that we have, and there is town or towns interested. We talked to Gov Deals, who does our auctions for us in DPW, and they can set up what they call a tier auction. The bidders involved will be using our account as an umbrella sort of, and we give Gov Deals the information, the name, the entity, the phone number and email, and they're added to a list. So then when the auction is live, the people added to the list will be able to see it and will be allowed to bid. So my plan is to send all the supervisors and superintendents what we have to bid out, this truck that we have and its history and the information we have on it, and then put it on the site for bid. But usually when we do a bid at the end, the person is able to buy it. And at the last meeting, you wanted me to come back and say, well, how much was it, and prove it. So,
So we can reject it. We think the municipalities didn't raise the price enough that you could get better in the real world.
When they do the auction, that's open to the public.
this auction is only open to who we put into.
That's what I was gonna ask. But are they putting it on, is it gonna show up on the whole, when they put it on their site?
It was, the email back said the people added to the list will be able to see it and be allowed to bid. So, but I can check and make sure.
Probably get your own link.
Yeah.
And they
it's
notify you of
something
it,
to do
then you
with
can go in that, and bid in that one.
So it's, so question, do we just put all the superintendent's names down, and supervisor's names down, just links, and repopulate that, and just send a link to everyone?
that. That's
All the
what
municipalities?
we were gonna send it out like that, yeah.
So the only imperfect setup is the fact when they close it, it's awarded to us.
Yeah, because the company, the Gov Deals is gonna charge us, and if we reject it, I guess we're gonna have to pay that fee, right? Because they have their commission on there. Huh?
So what's their commission? What's the commission? We're talking $1,000, $50?
I think it's a percent.
Buyer's premium percent, we'll probably pay it. If the buyer doesn't pay it, we probably end up paying it, would be my guess. Because they put the time and effort into it, they want to get paid.
So pay it back, charge, and better than.
No, the low bidder would pay it, but if we rejected the bid, if we rejected the bid, so the bids are over, right? The winning bidder, we accept it, we pay that. However, if we don't, then there's no money for them to make. And I would assume that we're gonna pay it instead. So that they're made whole.
That's kind of the best way we felt we could come up with an auction.
Which we've done it, you know, we paid per parcel, we used to do it that way with our real estate auction. When we pulled parcels, we paid the guy a percentage or a flat fee per parcel, but we don't do that anymore. He just takes a higher buyer's premium and takes the risk. But when it was closer to the bone margin, yeah, put the work into it, and we pulled the parcel or whatever. So
And are you auctioning a truck, or are you auctioning 6 trucks, or how many?
Right now, it's a truck.
A truck.
Yep.
Well, it's a big
Yep.
tandem
It is the
Wow.
one we talked about before. It doesn't have a transmission. It's got a blown motor.
We were testing the process of offering it to municipalities first.
It has a box, right?
Yes, it has a
It's a
stainless
stainless
steel box. Yep.
There was some inquiries from a couple of the towns about it.
Gotcha.
And, you know, our plan hopefully is to offer our cycled out trucks in better condition in the near future. So this is kind of a test to see how it works.
Were you on the trucks that we ordered that are in that, are you still waiting for boxes on its wax?
No, we got all of our.
You've got all your trucks?
We got all of our trucks from the first order. We have 6 more on order that should be in this year, so
Sometime in 2023, you're gonna get the other 6,
others.
other 4
Yep.
chassis and everything.
So yes, we have all of the trucks that we expected to date. They were a little bigger than usual because of waiting for the boxes.
I only asked because they said there were 3 of your boxes that our truck was next, that they keep telling us that we're waiting for you guys, but now I can go back and say, Washington County's taking care of your BS and us, we want our truck.
Well, now you're gonna get, I shouldn't say this, but now you're gonna get all the weather delayed us because this will.
Supply chain,
It's sitting on a port somewhere.
okay,
And we're gonna do this, I mean, this is a good test run, but we're gonna do this with any of our decent equipment, correct?
Yes, well, I mean, that's what I was,
No trade.
Well,
If they have the
I don't-
box,
yeah,
let's start with this one.
you
So.
might want it.
Should we try it and see, and then, do you want me to bring the price back? Do you want me to send it out to you all? Do you want, I mean, maybe I can even make it end the day before the next committee meeting, and that way there's no waiting.
that's the way to do it.
Want to do that?
Yep.
All right,
Then you bring it back.
Keep the minimal.
we don't usually,
I would worst case it to what if we sucked up the loss, right? Minimum bit of whatever, just to make sure that we cover whatever.
You don't know if it's a 5% by premium.
what's the box worth? The box is
No.
worth something like that, the minimum.
And we know if none of the municipalities wanna pay what we think it's worth, put it back out at auction again. You're already paying the company.
Good test run, so something good comes up.
Yeah, we're doing with something, maybe it isn't 100,000 right now.
and we're not truly committed yet, because the auction will end the day before the next
Right.
meeting, so we can make a decision on how it went and revisit it then. if you want.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So, we'll do the auction, I'll send all that. So the next thing I have up. Well, can I go off script, because I have a list of myself. So we send,
You just lost
It's like an every
It's next meeting.
so we send out all these bids in the early spring. You know, pipes and crushed stone and blacktop and all that stuff. The closing of the bid is actually tomorrow and Thursday. The opening of the bid, I should say, is tomorrow and Thursday. So I don't really want to wait until the March meeting to ask if we can award these bids. So can I send this to finance? Because it goes to finance anyway, doesn't it? To award the miscellaneous bids. Yes. Yes, exactly. We don't want to wait until middle of April to order stuff.
Supply chain.
We need a motion. Yes. Should,
Motion to open it to finance.
more discussion on it? All in favor, aye?
So Bridge New York is working a little different now. And they gave each county a certain amount of money, kind of, sort of. So we were able to put a project on County Route 3 that is going to be about $2,578,150.
That must be a real big culvert.
Yes. Yep. that was going through the AGFTC. If you have a,
Yes.
so we need to do a budget amendment to add this to our budget.
Motion to move it to finance, second by Dave. Questions, discussions?
Is that,
Look at Daryl smile.
is that the Mill Bay Bridge?
Church Street.
Oh, roads lead there apparently.
Well, we need two ways. One to go one way and one to come across the other.
It definitely has one of those famous laminated wood decks on it.
But that's getting
I don't know which one that is.
They were both yesterday, were over, one was like Mill Pond, and one was, remember, they both had Mill something.
Oh,
One
yeah.
for Warren County was Mill something, and the one for Washington County was Mill.
Where's your wooden deck bridge?
So I'm trying to go into the Rolodex of my mind.
Oh, you wouldn't see it because we pave over it. Must be because mill and mill.
There was something found out.
There's a dam there too. So, I mean, it's narrow and it's on turn.
I do want to point out that I should have said that there is a 5% match on this. It's pretty important.
By the
Is
town.
that below the stone house?
That account.
But it's awarded. By the town.
Yes. Yep.
You have to pay it there.
I know, right? I'll be down there working it off.
All in favor of moving it to finance?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I have a question? That's bridge New York,
Yes.
and you. Did you have to apply for that, or did you just give it to you?
So what it used to be was there was a competitive process, and we put in for the Gray Lane
Right.
and a bunch of other bridges. But the County Highway Superintendents Association kind of fought back on that because we put all this time in and we would never get anything. So the guy who was at the state who was kind of making sure it was a competitive process has moved on. So we were able to work with the state officials and we've changed the whole project. So now it goes through the, what's the AGFTC?
Adirondack.
Yeah, it goes,
Transportation.
yeah. If you have one of those in your area, it goes through that, but not an MPO. If you have an MPO in your area, it goes through that. And the state has determined based on a square foot area of the bridge deck and an average rating on who gets how much money. So we got a certain amount of money and we put in for this bridge. There's other counties that don't have MPOs, so it's a similar process, but they don't go through the MPO. They go through the state. So it's different. We didn't apply, we were given this money. So it's kind of it's a grant sort of, but not apply.
There's an easier process.
And that's $2 million.
Yep.
I was just wondering, like the Gray Lane Bridge.
Yep.
Is that more than
Gray Lane, yeah, that's like 4 or 5 million.
And they're doing a Bridge New York project in our town eventually, and that's just shy of $1 million. Yours was just shy of $1 million too. That's
For a culvert.
I'm gonna call.
clarified. Culvert.
Two.
Ours is on stuff. That's for ours. Way beyond the county.
Well, that's kind of one of the things I was going to tell you is that yesterday at the NISAC meeting, we had 2 resolutions. And one of them was to increase the chips, the Bridge New York and all that stuff because inflation, at the time of this, it was affecting 22%. So that was one of the resolutions that.
It's inflation, but it's how the state runs stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
that's
You
part
know,
of it.
We
Well,
got $1 million
if you want our-
culvert that's going in this year for us that, you know, the county for last.
If you want our
The
free
state's
money, you
doing
have
it,
to
yeah.
follow our rules. So that's what that is.
Are any of the Bridge New York bridges done for the first round? You know, they're not in our county, but I don't know if they are anywhere.
Well, those are culvert.
Right, the bridge culvert, New York, they're not done.
And those are all in the county, are
Yeah.
all in the towns.
The one on Ferguson Road, that was a culvert, New York, they just finished that.
You got one this year. Christine.
Yes, on Christie Road, that one actually is gonna become a bridge. So
Isn't that one
county-
already a bridge there now?
No, not the Christie Road.
Or you
Elijah,
just started on?
It is down a ways. You can't see it from 29 or 40.
I joked when we got awarded in the first round that I could be retired before they ever put the bridge in. They have 5 years to do it. I'm not in yet.
So I wanted to tell you about NISAC. There's two other things. One is the Hartford MOA. So Dana called and asked if we had that yesterday, and I don't know if we need an MOA, because if any town calls us and says, hey, we need you to help us in a storm, we go and help them, and then they pay us back. So this MOA just pays us back quicker. So do you guys want to sign the MOA, or do you worry about the MOA? It's almost over. Do you want to have discussion about it? What would you prefer I do?
Right.
So I think Mr. Half would prefer you had an MOA, that the one he sent around, the original one he circulated, had language that, in my opinion, said that if he called, we had to go, we were obligated to go, rather than if we could go if we had enough people. So we're assuming an obligation we might not be able to meet. So in other words, if we were fully engaged, it didn't make provision for that. It just said, when we call, you'll come. This new one now says, we'll come if we can, but we don't have to if we can't, kind of thing. So, and then the other thing, it did clean up a little bit, the reimbursement. It said he would reimburse us for the cost of the people and the materials, but we have a rate that the state reimburses us, whatever. So I'd rather see the agreement say they're going to pay us whatever. We already know what that number is. We don't have to calculate. But it's not referred to in the agreement. So I'd rather see the agreement say they're going to pay us whatever our rate is to do it. Whether it's a state rate, you know, there's a rate we've already established. I don't know what the towns are doing. They may have they may have a different system for doing it, but for the county, we've already got that established.
So if we don't sign an agreement, we're still gonna get paid at our rate, just a little.
Well, there's no, so the agreement we have now is, it's more like mutual aid for a fire company, okay? It's like if somebody's truck goes down or something like that, we're gonna go help you out, and we'll figure it out later, kind of thing. I think he would prefer, I would probably prefer too, it's gonna be a regular thing, a more formalized agreement for this situation, for the situation he's in. It's kind of a unique situation. It's not the barn in Fort Edward burned down and they don't have any trucks today, and everybody's going to get together, or something happened to your highway superintendent in Argyle. Those are two situations that we've had recently where, yeah, we pitch in the breach to help. This hasn't been, God, I hope we're not ever going to have to plow again, but I'm not sure. I believe March is going to be that kind to us. So this is a situation where it's not planned, but it's more foreseeable, and therefore I think we ought to have. I agree. I think we ought to have a formalized agreement. And those are the two things in the original agreement that I was a little leery of. In the new one, it does say we'll only come if we can, but it also starts referring to various items to be reimbursed. And to me, it's a lot simpler to just say we're going to pay. You're going to pay us whatever our rate is.
I agree with the simplification of what Roger stated. If the town of Hartford would like an MOA, let's provide an MOA, but more on our terms, and our terms are as a county, the rate reimbursement, the fixed rate value, and as you stated, situation dependent, if we're available, we can do that. So you have a responsibility to county roads. I know up in Putnam, we probably don't need an MOA. We make it go, but that's what Hartford needs. Why not?
it's not a big change. It's just taking out 2 sentences and saying you'll pay our rate.
Right, and we can, does it have to be by year? Because the rate's published in the year, or is it can reference it?
I think it's just gonna be whatever our established rate is.
And it could be a multi-year MOA. if you want it to be.
I think he's hoping that that situation won't continue to be a multi-year situation.
Oh, okay, all right.
What happened December 31st? But anyways.
Well, I have a few concerns. One is I want to make sure that it definitely says what it is. I don't want to hear back and say, well, our rates for this, well, it wouldn't cost that much Hartford to do it, so this is what we're paying. I want to see real numbers there. I'm also a little concerned that this is being more as we're being hired as part-time help. I only want it. I don't like the feeling that it seems like we're the ones that are going to be responsible for the road. And if our staff for the county is drawn away from their jobs maintaining the county roads on a regular basis because there's still an ongoing problem in Hartford, I'm concerned of the safety on the county roads. I feel more like this is, okay, we don't have help. Oh, we got the county, that's good. We're all set. I want to somehow, they should still be working to solve their problem and not be relying on us. And I don't know, signing in them, whatever, makes me feel like they're gonna go, okay, we got that problem fixed, next thing, and aren't gonna keep trying to fix their problem. I just feel like, I know you feel the same way, because just the way, but I just feel like they're
We
using
can't
us.
word it the right way.
Right.
Well, the language says now, it says, when the town of Hartford requests it, we agree within the constraints of manpower, available equipment, and available resources in our discretion to plow, sand, salt, and maintain as necessary portions of highway that are adjacent or proximity to the respective provider, which is, or in the case of the county, which are in proximity to the county and state highways that we're plowing, continuing through April 30th, 2023. So that language I think is good because it says we don't have to, we're going to come if we can, but we don't have to.
So we're not gonna be when there's 2 feet of snow and our guys working their tails off to maintain our roads. We're not gonna be in the post star saying the school said they couldn't open because the county couldn't come in the roads in Hartford.
I guess that's
something along
good.
those
That's
lines.
Deb's discretion to say we can come or we can't come. Somebody's got to make that decision. The second portion says we'll provide, compensate for any costs and expenses arising out of the services. Costs and expenses shall include but not be limited to, so there's some wiggle room there, actual compensation to personnel and necessary supplies, salt and sand. So, but we have a machinery, I'm not intimately acquainted with that, but there's a machinery rental rate and all the rest of that stuff. So I would think that would be a more accurate number descriptor to use rather than sitting there and calculating, well, it was Bob, he's paid $23 an hour, and Tom has 5 more years of seniority, so he gets paid $23.40 an hour. Who plowed my road when and all that. It's like our rental rate is whatever it is, and we're just sending people out there and doing that. I think, and I've talked with Deb a little bit about that. She seems to be of that opinion too. It's just easier to say this is what our rental rate is for this year, and it's going to end at the end of. It's not the end of April, but right? Yeah, April.
And a big,
Right. So
I got Sue and then I got Matt.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, with like the towns, we have dirt roads and we have paved roads. And you use and maintain dirt roads differently than we do.
Yep.
So that can be an issue in the town of Hartford because with the winter we had, our dirt roads are a lot worse than our paved roads.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're getting phone calls, or if you could get phone calls.
Yeah, we don't have any dirt roads, so, and the road that he asked us to do, I believe, is a paved road.
And so it's just one
Check.
road that he's asking,
Yep.
not asking for the whole town.
Right. And also, I think they have enough help right now. I mean, it doesn't, I don't think Dana's dying to have us sign this if we don't want to, after talking to him yesterday. It's getting towards the end of the season. We're gonna help him if he needs it and charge him what we would have agreed to in this revised one anyway. Not gonna-
Snowstorm.
Man,
So I've had extensive discussions with Dana about this. We've been going back and forth for quite a while. The three things we talked about, number one, if it's a little storm, we'll have time to help him, but he won't need us. If it's a big storm, he'll need us, but we won't have time. So it sort of defeats the purpose. Number two, our attorney sent 4 issues back to him, which 2 you already pointed out right away that were pretty obvious. One was about the liability on the defective road condition, that if we see something but don't report it, we could be liable for a road condition in his town. And so we wanted that fixed. The last one was contractual liability exclusions regarding NYMER and how NYMER would feel about them covering the county and then covering the town, and then what the MOU would mean to them. So that's number 2. Number 3, this is the text I got from him last night. I won't make the meeting. I'll be putting the chains on and plowing. If MOU comes up tomorrow, which is today, at the county, I'm big on making the county whole, but I think it turns out maybe they did not have to help. I will say thank you and not belabor it. Greg had a lot of part-time help now anyways, for me to for getting the word out with the state of emergency. So it may be a bit, but it's the same feedback you got from him yesterday. Just for informational purposes, those are the 3 things I know.
Having a MOU on the shelf where we run into this situation again and it's there, we can put it into place right away.
Well, this situation is a little bit, for whatever reason, it's a little bit unique. We do have, and we signed I'll call it mutual aid for lack of a better term, a thing that if there's a, oh my gosh, situation, and we've used it in the past, we'll go and help. But it's unique. It's a unique situation. So that's why an MOU would be appropriate. We can still operate, as Deb says, under the emergency thing. Just send them a bill and hope that they pay. If you want to do it that way. But this agreement was proposed to us, and so I'm telling you that there's some issues with that agreement. And
I asked them to amend those 4 things in the word process really quickly, and we'd sign it. Or put an addendum page fixing those 4 things. And
they
you
did,
didn't want to do that for 4 towns in the county and go through all that mess.
they did fix some of it.
You made a statement. We talked to you last night,
But he texted me.
when he texted you, he said, we probably didn't need the plowing that's already been done.
If the MOU comes up tomorrow at the county, I'm big on making the county whole, but I think it turns out maybe they did not have to help. I will say thank you and not belabor it. Greg had a lot of part-time help now anyways for me getting the word out the state of emergency. So he's got part-time help to get his goals done.
So the county has helped them.
We have not helped. We have not been asked to help
Okay.
the whole
okay,
season.
Okay, I thought
Isn't
it, the way that was worded, that they helped, but it wasn't needed.
It's not needed going
I don't
forward.
think it's.
Okay.
Skip it, end of the conversation.
The Hartford's a union job, right?
Yes,
Would our union have
that would be his problem.
providing assistance?
It's-
Oh, I don't think that.
I don't know. I mean, I think they would do what we asked them to do, and they're always willing to help out with stuff. But they might though. Yeah.
Well, they're not thinking, they're not there right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
It could be, but
That's a good one.
that would be good for them to come to us.
public safety has to weigh in somewhere.
There was a couple towns concerned about them being staffed.
Because there is some towns, it's a union shop, you can't go in there, like even in a bad storm, the highway superintendent has to ask him if it's okay if he helps, because he's taking away work from them to step up and help for a closed shop.
Unless it was state of emergency.
Right.
Union shops attached to the highway department, not attached to people that work there.
I think there's one guy, isn't it? Still? I don't know, but I think at the last highway superintendent's meeting, they were part-time.
Yes.
They had enough part-timers at the last, when he first handed out his first MAU, whatever it is, there was already enough part-timers then.
So is the consensus just to let it ride at this point, or do you want to get it, the wording corrected and get it signed?
I move for that, right?
Let it ride?
Right.
There you go.
Perfect.
Should this event occur in the future, we have a shelf, one that's on the shelf.
So no one's helped them.
Nobody at the county has helped. I don't think
We
the
haven't had the
state
storm
has.
to worry about.
Right.
Okay.
We have shared roads that go from our town into his town, and for us to do a turnaround and go back, we could finish out part of his road, then do a longer turnaround and come back. We'd agree to do that. It wouldn't impact our beats at all. Right. That's what we do.
I believe
Baker Road,
Argyle is
County Road.
plowing where their school bus route is. into Hartford.
Is there still, is he still under him?
He keeps, as far as I know, he keeps extending. So it can only go 30 days.
He's extended to a second 30 days.
Yes.
Skip it. And then the last thing I have is Lock Gateway. So we got the Marchicelli paperwork from the state. I sent it to finance and then it went to the board and it wasn't adopted. So how long am I on hold for? What should I expect to happen?
Well, I think it's been tabled because 2 or 3 things need to be met before it comes off the table. At least that's my understanding. We're here to discuss this, so the next time we have a board meeting, we'll be able to pull it off the table if everything's been met.
Well, I tabled it, so I'd be happy to offer what I would recommend. I think we wait until the policies of the IDA. And then that's action. They are.
So procedurally, something that was tabled, if it doesn't come off the table at the next meeting, it dies, and then it would have to be reintroduced as another resolution with a new number. Not a big deal, it's just that's procedurally how it works. So if something hasn't happened by the next meeting, and you're not willing to make a motion to take it off the table, that just gets renumbered. You have to be reintroduced, renumbered, and start over. Correct.
It's also my understanding, unless it's changed since last time I've talked to you, Deb, we do not have a signed agreement with the IDA as far as their commitment on their shared 5% cost.
No, we don't have an MOA.
That it's either one. I've spoken with the IDA's attorney, and she's working on it.
So we don't. We'll tell you that, at least too.
So Deb, if it takes 2 or 3 months to unwind all this, what does that do to you? Does the delay impact anything major, or if we don't get our act together until May, it's no big deal?
It's not a huge deal. We like to keep these things moving because you know how slow the state is. You know how slow government as a whole is. So we like to keep them moving.
You mean state government, not county government?
Right,
Government.
exactly. So that's why we like to keep it moving, but it's not at risk of losing its funding. The time frame for seasons is, it should still have enough time to do design to go to construction.
The main thing that we're waiting for is the MOA.
The policy. No, the tax, the UTEP policy is what we're waiting for. It was tabled, and that's my understanding.
Right, that's one thing, and then the other thing is the signed agreement.
Right, the MOU to get our money, to get the 5% back, and then what how the administrative costs are gonna be.
So they're going to get the circle, what they have to do. All right.
Well, and just for this committee's discussion, because I guess there was some question again. I believe it's in the resolutions. The IDA was going to have 5%, pay the 5% cost share, and the administration was going to be covered by either cash and or replacement bridge. That.
So the IDA would reimburse the county for the local match and, by cash or other value, the value of the administrative time spent by county staff.
For the administrative.
Right, so it's 5% regardless, and then
Whatever.
cash
additional-
or barter for whatever's left over for the administrative costs.
But wasn't it bartered that it would be the bridge?
Well, if the administrative costs are more than the bridge, I guess if they're less than the bridge, then there's discussion that has to be had there.
How much is your time worth? Out, Rich?
And Al's time and my time.
Make the money for the county.
I remembered it as being, we would do the admin and we would get the bridge. But we didn't keep track of time or value the bridge. If we wanted to do that, then I'll have to figure that out.
She want to take administrative, I remember her saying she want to take administrative time to figure out what her time was.
That's what the resolution says.
Yeah, what would be the value of what you're doing to the idea, or what you're doing for the idea? Like, what's, we're doing, because they can't get the Marcia Sully grant, so we're doing it out of, correct?
Yes.
So what is that, what percentage is the Marcia Sully portion of?
So on federal aid projects, it's 80% the feds pay, 15% is reimbursed from Marchicelli, and then 5% is the county.
So
Yep. So your project would not be eligible for Marchicelli if you had done it yourself. Yeah. So 15% of bridge cost, what was it? 3 million-ish? Is that
I
what it
remember
was on?
two, but I don't think.
Two
that's-
something. It was between 2 and 3.
That was the latest number. We haven't seen the latest number. That's what the time's gonna bring up.
So 15% of, say 15% of 2.5 million, we'll just cut it down the middle.
That's what the state's gonna pay.
375,000 would be Marchicelli money that the project wouldn't
So
be
that's the
eligible.
value we're providing the IDA by serving the lead agency, correct?
Value is the difference. That's the difference. Otherwise,
They can't do
They
it.
can't serve as lead agency.
and they would be like Marcia Sully.
Right.
That's the value.
That's the federal.
Marchicelli is the 15. Yep.
So 375 is the value that we're providing to the IDA by serving as partner.
No, I didn't understand that. What I understood was is that administrative time, your administrative time was what you're reimbursing the town. That was the original
Yes.
agreement.
Yeah, that's the original agreement, but the value that we're providing by doing this for you,
Yep.
doing this for the IDA
Yeah.
is 375,000 plus.
Two concepts.
So my point was, this is why I wanted to table this. Because I think the IDA is serving as a good partner to us. We will exchange in kind 3 or 4 months from now, probably the policy change to our liking.
Peter missed, I didn't channel my inner Alva and say plus the cost of money.
It's the cost of money.
So the
That's
cost,
true. Cost of money is going up.
right, the money that we're committing to this project is money we don't have for either our own project or to invest.
Cash flow.
Because we have,
Oh, right.
we have to pay up front till the money comes through.
Right, so and the cost of money is going up. So
Add that opportunity cost.
Al and I had that discussion the other day. He's not here, so I'm just, and I'm like, that's about as in depth as I'm willing to get in that subject. I'm glad you brought it up. It's, he mentioned it, so.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. Again, it brings the point back to, I would like to make sure we have a solid partner with the IDA. See,
Sue, you had a question?
Yes, and doing so, this is the wrong bridge. Isn't there a bridge there that the county is going to use to put somewhere else? Across the bridge, is that a gift to the county?
So yes, that bridge is what we're talking about in exchange for doing the administrative work on the bridge and being the lead agency.
Is there a value to that bridge?
There is a value to that bridge, yes.
And so if you subtract that from the.
It's kind of hard to put a value on it. It's one of those things where if you're a contractor who has a project coming up and you have to supply a temporary bridge, it's worth a lot of money to you. For the county, it would be great to have that bridge in case we needed to put a temporary bridge up, which we've had to do since I've been. But it hopefully is 10 years before we have to do it.
The only reason why I bring that up is putting value to value to value, because everything.
Yep.
So
We might pull it out.
This would have been,
Anything.
this would have been an excellent solution Ray, why not?
This was what we were originally trying to do, but I wanted to keep our process going forward and not rely on one project for another. Because it was kind of like with the link properties. You know, we were considering waiting until the EPA and all that, lean and all that stuff, but I wanted to go forward with our process now. It's already done almost. And the EPA has moved forward yet, so.
With the state of some of the bridges in the county, would probably be a spot that would be needed.
Yes, and this is a segmented bridge, so we may be able to use it in two places, one bridge in two places. I feel that this is a good value to acquire into our assets at the county, because our temporary bridges right now that we have are small and old.
The town of Jackson was thankful you had a temporary bridge, because we had a 1-lane road that they state come in and said nobody can go over that bridge unless it's a bicycle. We had to get fire and fuel oil up into these houses. So
Yep.
the county came right in and set up the temporary over the top. And made a big difference.
And then we used it in Greenwich on Ferguson before you got there.
So are we telling Deb based on the resolution that she's got to calculate the administrative costs, or are we? Because we're talking about two different things, right? The value of the project to the IDA, and then the actual back to the resolution where I think we said got those numbers, I guess. Is that right? Be reimbursed by the
Unless
IDA?
we're gonna agree on a bridge on the value ahead of time, and she can tell you when she's exceeded that value.
Can you read that back, Roger?
The only reason,
All right, so the IDA would reimburse the county for the local match and by cash or other value of the administrative time spent by the county staff.
Cash or other value, is that the value of?
Yes, that's the other.
That was the original intention, correct?
That's the value. of the
Yeah.
bridge To the county.
I just see the way things have been going around here lately, that you probably want to put a value to your time anyway, so. Whether or not you end up using it in the resolution, I think you'll set the precedence by knowing how much it's worth. It isn't somebody won't come back in 2 years and say, well, you did that, and you don't really know how much time you spent on that, in case another project comes up and you don't want to get moved into it, at least since this is your first time you're taking a bridge trade, doing this for them, that you might as well keep track of your time and administrative costs at the same time. Set the precedence on all the costs.
All right, so keep track of that.
Possibility also exists, quite frankly, that the administrative time doesn't meet the value of the bridge. We owe the, well, we owe them.
Yeah, but I thought we already agreed.
No, it's an and.
It was already-
It's an and.
And,
Right.
it's an and,
No,
this is over and above.
Are you guys taking?
Well, we're
my
getting the
bridge away?
5% no matter
Are you
what.
saying- No, we're not.
If he
taking
wants
your
his
bridge.
5%, I want the bridge.
So your bridge is one thing, but the and is an and your
Right.
administrative cost, so that's an additional
the
thing.
bridge and.
But
Yeah.
we,
Bridge and.
but we agreed
No,
that
it's
the
the
bridge would
5%
be at,
No, it's the 5% in. So
5%.
the 5% will be reimbursed for the 5% that we're paying out to build the bridge.
That's separate, right?
That's separate.
Yep.
That's a number. That's a number.
I believe,
I think,
And then the administrative costs can be paid to us either by bridge or bucks.
but we agreed it was by bridge.
That's
We
fine.
didn't talk about
The-
bucks.
Our MOU doesn't talk about anything at this point.
I think we all thought that that bridge is gonna be worth more. Don't get me wrong, but that was.
We don't want
Right.
to
she keeps trying, then she's gonna have to kick back.
You're opening a can of worms there, you know?
I don't know, all I know is coming back around to
Keep
different
track of your
subjects, but they don't
administrative
keep track.
costs, that's the value of the bridge.
Or we may
Maybe keep track of
That's very
yourself, so
simple,
you don't
but
have to
true.
reconstruct.
If,
Track yourself,
if
so
the
you don't-
value of the bridge equals your administrative costs, then that's the value. of the bridge.
Right. Yeah, that's what you're gonna do.
You're worth $1 million an hour,
And I
so
thought that's
whatever it
originally
is,
what we were doing.
it's covered.
Man, I'm just thinking about, in our industry, is they'll say, well, listen, we'll strip the old slate off the roof and we'll just use that as the cost of our labor to take it off and we'll resell the slate. Well, there's a cost to take all that slate off the roof. There's a cost to take the bridge out. Who values the cost of that bridge extraction versus the value of the bridge?
So,
Who's taking it out? The contractor?
yeah, so the
Part of the
taking out,
contract.
yes, taking out of the bridge is gonna be in the contract.
And that's plucked out and
And
then
then,
put it on your trailer and
yep,
drive away.
move to, yes,
So there's no cost per se until Dana says the contract would be less if they didn't have to take the bridge out and put it in one piece on our trailer,
That
right?
would have to happen no matter what. So that's part of your, 5%.
Okay,
Because whether we were building this bridge, they're building that bridge, that other old one has to go. So that would have been part of the construction anyway.
yeah, but just like on the roof, if it's gotta go, you just tear the whole thing down, it costs you $1. If you gotta take it out piece by piece and make it nice, it's gonna cost you $5. I'm just saying, if we're factoring down to these levels, let's consider everything.
Still 5%.
it's in the project.
It's in the project.
So it's a good conversation because we gotta get our heads around it, so we're all on the same page. I think that what you're really trying to do is keep track of your administrative costs, number of hours you put forward in this effort. And then that equals the value of the bridge, we're done. But that's,
That was the impression I had way back when we were discussing.
That was the impression I had.
Who values the bridge?
who values the bridge?
Deb said-
does.
That's time and effort.
It's hard. Yeah. Deb's not even figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's on our team, so it's a bit.
Right. So her time, her people's time, all get rolled.
Roger's time and Al's time.
Exactly.
So you keep track too.
I don't know, I'm listening to see if I am. Right now, the meter's running, so.
True lawyer, that's a lawyer right there, that's what I was gonna say.
Whatever your hourly rate is. Whatever your hourly rate is. No, I said that.
Is that, May-ish time look good for policy updates?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, we'll have another 3-hour meeting.
Well, we'll have the MOU back too, to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Well, the more time I hear, the less time I have.
You're the only one who thinks that.
I got a sandwich I can share with you.
Keep growing.
Are we all settled for the moment on this discussion?
Is everybody happy?
I think it was,
Yeah.
this was info, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no
It's nice and comfy on the table where it's set and clean and the best.
And to make everybody aware of what's going on with that resolution.
So
It's
you'll,
tabled, right, so
so you have
If we
to
don't, if
table
it
it
doesn't
next
come
month?
off the table next
we'll have
month.
to redo it. We'll just have to go back.
If we don't do anything next month, we'll have to redo a resolution.
Right, yeah, right. That Marchicelli, you'll have to.
Is there
redo.
something about only a person voted one way or the other on table, or is there something in there you need to explain to us? Or can anybody? on the
I think
table?
that's only.
No, that's a reconsideration.
Okay.
Only a person that voted against, can, so you can't, if you lose, only a yes can vote to reconsider. So a person that was a no can't keep, on the opposite side of the issue, can't keep asking for reconsideration when they're on the
Gotcha.
losing side, whether it was a yes or a no. Because they don't want you to keep saying, well, I'd like to reconsider, I'd like to sit here. So only the only person that can reconsider is the one that's on whatever the winning side was. It's come up once, I think, since I did.
That's all I have.
Does anybody have anything else for Deb?
Yeah, really.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.